This video is only one part of an in-depth review, so check out the rest at thegoodride.com. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, I'm James Beastie and this is The Good Ride. Thanks for being here while I review the 2022 Union Falcor. Next to it is the Atlas, the Force, the Contact Pro, and the Flight Pro. I'll mainly be comparing these against the Atlas and the Force because that's what most people are comparing these to, and they have similar response. But I will occasionally reference the Contact Pro and less so the Flight Pro because it's just in another budget. I rode these with a wide variety of boards in a wide variety of conditions, and same goes with boots, but I primarily used my Burton Kendos. To give you a quick summary, the Falcor is very similar to what it was last year, except for one thing. They upgraded the Highback. It's a different material. It seems a little more sturdy. It has now 2 holes inside here, so you can actually rotate the Highbacks where you couldn't last year. So it makes it a much more recommendable binding for those who want kind of the response of the Atlas and Force, maybe even a touch more, but more butterability because it has a mini disc instead of a full-size disc. That does have some compromises. If you're dealing with, let's say, a board with setback inserts, this won't work. But overall, it's a very good balance between giving you that kind of mountain freestyle butterability and that all mountain response. So let's talk weight. These are pretty light at 1.8 pounds with screws and discs in. That's really light. They're much lighter than the Atlas, which I believe are 2 or 2.2 pounds. Same with the Force. They're right there with the Contact Pro. And the Flight Pro, who cares? Because they're so cheap. They're not really in consideration when you're looking at these. Now let's talk Highback Flex. The new Highback material is kind of cool. It feels maybe not as snappy, but stiffer. There isn't much twist going on, and there's only a little give at the top. Compare that to the next binding down, the Contact Pro. There's a little give at the top, actually a good amount of give and a good amount of twist. I mean, just for the hell of it, here's this twist, a lot more twist and even more give than the Contact Pro. But compare these to the Atlas, which most people will be looking at, and you're looking at a very easy twist and a little bit of give, yet they still have almost the same response as the Falcors. Let's do the Force here. Way more twist and almost no give with the Force at the top here. But what I like about this year's Falcor is you can rotate the Highbacks, so they're not going to bite into your calves as much as they did before. So when it comes to flex underfoot, this is excellent. It's a very good binding if you like to butter or you want your board to twist a little better and flex a little better this way. This just does a better job than almost any other binding out there in the line other than the Contact Pro with the softer EVA foam underneath. This EVA foam is a little rubbery, a little on the rubbery side, and it's kind of a little more stiff than the Contact Pro, but not quite as rubbery as the Atlas. This just has great butterability, and it really makes the board you have a little flexier, a little easier, and it really doesn't interfere. There's almost no dead spots underfoot. If you want a little more of a dead spot to dampen up your board, then it's definitely the Atlas. That's the better call. Now, when it comes to turn initiation and response, this is really fast. And I even put the Falcor on one foot, the Atlas on another, and I was surprised at how close the response was, but I think I'm going to give the nod by just a little bit to the Falcor. Just had a little quicker turn initiation. Once that side cut was engaged, they powered the board about the same. I actually prefer this a little better in uneven snow. I felt like it had better response. It quieted down the board's edge and made it more damp underfoot where you're initiating that turn. And I felt like this did a little better in uneven snow, but this was a little better in good, clean groomers. Now, when it comes to shock absorption and dampness, there is really good shock absorption here. The Falcor is made for going big. It's Travis Rice's binding. It's a little more damp at high speeds than the Contact Pro, but not quite there with the Atlas. And I think it just does a great overall job, and I like the canting. Just remember to set this up this way. I don't know if you can see that there. You want to line this up so the cant in the disc matches the cant in the footbed. Just remember that. But overall, it's a very shock absorbent and damp binding. The Union Contact Pro is a little better at slow speeds because it's got a softer EVA foam that's a little more forgiving in those conditions. The Force is about the same as these, maybe just a touch better at slow speeds and not quite as damp at higher speeds. And the Flight Pro, just not in the same family, not as damp or shock absorbent. Now, when it comes to boot support, I love these toe straps. They do such a great job, and they really conform to just about any boot out there. Same with the ankle straps. They're quite similar to what you see on the Atlas and the Force for 2022, and they're a little more supportive than the Contact Pro, and especially so with the Flight Pro. I like the Contact Pro's ankle strap. It has a little more freedom of movement, but still has a good amount of boot support. This has a little less freedom of movement, but you still have good freedom of movement and a little more support. So this does a little better in uneven terrain than the Contact Pro, but it's about the same as the Atlas and the Force in terms of boot support. And then on top of that, the ratchet system is just top notch. Some of the best in the business. They're just working perfectly right out of the box. These allow you to crank down as hard as you want if you want to do that and you want to fuck up your feet over time. But I love that because I crank down really hard over the toe, as hard as it'll go, because there's never any pressure points there. And then I crank the ankle strap down to just past touching, so I have support, but I don't have any pressure points. And I find that these work great for that. It really just keeps my boots supported. And I love how this ratchet system works. I've never had an issue with these. Like, for example, similar ratchets on my Atlas, 100 days in, they work perfectly. My old Atlas, they lasted like 5 seasons. Incredible. Now, when it comes to adjustability, because you can rotate the high back, the adjustability's really good this year. And now you don't have to worry about using the heel loop, which is more for sizing the boot to your binding as opposed to rotating the high back. What I would have to do before is pull out one side a little more, put one side in a little more, so you get that high back rotation, but it also compromised the ability to fit the boot. So I love that you can do both now, like you can with all the other Union bindings, and I think that's really cool. It's not quite there with the Atlas because you don't have an adjustable gas pedal, but you do have an adjustable heel loop, so you can dial out most of your boots to be centered in the binding and therefore centered on the board. Then you can turn this mini disc sideways and you have decent adjustability there to slide backwards and forwards, and you can get good stance with adjustability. The ankle strap adjustability and toe strap adjustability is kind of weird this year. It just kind of pops out and you slide it in and out and then pop it back in. I kind of like this and kind of don't. I think I personally like this toolless adjustability of the Atlas and the Force. I think it's pretty cool though, and it worked with me. I didn't have any issues with it coming loose. And then you've got this weird ass forward lean adjuster. I just wish they would use something like the Force and the Atlas where you just flip it up and put it in and away you go. With this one, go get a screwdriver. So overall, I really like the redesign of the high back that has high back rotation. It makes it a much more recommendable binding. And if you want something that has the response and almost as much dampness as the Atlas, but you want more butterability and you want a better feel underfoot, you've got the Union Falcor this year, and it's a solid binding, highly recommendable. All our reviews are a best effort, objective opinion from an average rider's perspective. There's no brand oversight, and we're free to say whatever we want. We send back everything unless it's a favorite, then we ask to keep those or straight up buy them. Now, if you need advice, fill out the eHarmony profile in the Contact Us section of the site. It's the only way I can help you properly. If you want to support us, and if what we reviewed appeals to you, it helps if you buy through our links. So, thanks for watching.